that concludes the informal questions. We will now commence the formal meeting. As soon as I'm told the webcam's on. Thank you very much. Members, the minutes of the meeting held on the 2nd of December 2014 have been laid on the table for the last half hour. May I assign those as a true record, please? Thank you. It says apologies for absence. There can't be any. We're all here. Thank you very much. Any declarations of interest, please, Mr. Taylor?
None received in advance, Leader.
Any from members? No, thank you very much. Number 4 are questions from members of the public. A question from Mr. Ken Reid.
Good evening, councillors. In answer to my question at a meeting of the council in December, Councillor Adams said, "While the overall SHMA figure is borough-wide, there is plenty of information in the SHMA which provides information on housing need in Cranley." He then suggested that various tables showed how this need was assessed and ended by saying, "Finally, Table 27 estimates Cranley's future overall housing need." Excuse me. That is the complete record of what is required in Cranley. Table 27 actually shows an unvarnished requirement for newly arising need between 2013 and 2031 across the whole borough. The figures for each area's need is quoted as Godalming 1,826, Farnham 3,217, Hazelmere 812, Cranley 710, the rest of the borough 3,060. The total for the borough for newly arising need 2013 to 2031 being 9,625. Hence the need for Cranley is just 7.4 of the total for the borough taken as a whole. The draft SHMA and the latest consultation suggested that the total requirement for new dwellings up to 2031 is 8,450 or 470 per year. If Table 27 is the complete record of what is required in Cranley, then it follows that the need must be 7.4 of 8,450. That is 623 dwellings up to 2031 or 35 per year. Hence, the proposed development for 425 homes from Berkeley Homes is not required to meet a need in Cranley. Would Councillor Adams please tell us what housing need figure for Cranley he believes the council's evidence points to? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Adams.
Thank you for your question, Mr. Reid. Good evening. As it says, these are unvarnished requirements. To come to a final view about the right level of new housing for Cranley, any final allocation for Cranley in the new local plan will depend on a range of factors, including the final figure in the SHMA. The testing of alternatives to deliver new housing against sustainability criteria, infrastructure, availability of land and avoiding the green belt, and areas of highest landscape and environmental importance. It is not realistic to assume that the rest of the borough will accommodate the figure referred to in Table 27 due to Greenbelt, AOB and other landscape constraints. I think you're aware that the proposed Barclays development was refused last night. You may also be aware that the letter from the Secretary of State was not due to any action by a member of the public. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next item is item number 5, the Executive Forward Programme. Colleagues, any amendments or alterations? Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Leader. Just an update really on the superfast broadband item on the forward work programme on page 14, I believe. Due to yet more delays at BT's end, really, the report is not going to be coming for the February meeting, and we're not entirely sure exactly what date it might come forward. So I would suggest that either we scrub that line for the time being and reinitiate it once we actually have a date, or we put an aspirational date in for some time in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll ask officers to remove that then, please. We are in others' hands here. There's nothing we can do about it. Anything else, anybody? Not at this time. Thank you very much. Item 6 is a motion from Council as set out on the agenda paper and a recommendation. Councillor Potts.
Thank you, Leader. I would just like to make a few points on this, and I fully appreciate the motion and the spirit in which it was brought by my colleagues, Councillor Munro and Councillor Frost. And I think for many of us who represent Farnham wards or indeed come from Farnham, we recognise that there are significant concerns about traffic in Farnham, and obviously we would welcome ways that we can mitigate this and improve the traffic issues in and around Farnham. However, I would strongly urge that businesses in Farnham, many of whom I have spoken with, are fully consulted and their views are taken on board. There are a number of businesses that I know have spoken to me and have expressed a lot of concerns, so we really do need to ensure that we consult and that they are consulted with in great detail. And likewise the residents' associations, we really want to ensure that we really do, and that when it comes down to it, they are fully consulted as well. We do need to remember, and I speak now as a ward member in North Farnham, which suffers in particularly badly from traffic at times, as my fellow ward colleague Councillor O'Neill will also agree. I think that we do need to make sure that if traffic and traffic calming or pedestrianisation or some form of this takes place, that the traffic disbursement, especially in North Farnham, is really very, very carefully looked at as well. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you. Any other comments, please? Councillor Taylor-Smith.
Thank you. I mean, really realising that, particularly in recent years, shopping's become a real leisure activity enjoyed by many people. And as such, as a sort of leisure activity where actually the places which present a very attractive environment are able to retain people, and people go there and will spend a time in an attractive town centre or shopping centre, and they will eat there, they will shop, and they will do other things when they're there. And really just to point the fact that the Brightwells development actually will provide that pedestrian environment overlooking a garden, which I think is lacking in Farnham at the moment, other than the Lionel Lamb Yard, which has become a much loved place to go and shop and to spend time in Farnham, despite a great deal of opposition at the time when that was going through the planning stage.
Thank you very much indeed. Any other comments? Colleagues, you'll see by the recommendation that we are asking officers to carry out some detailed research, specifically with the Highways Agency, because we need to know where the traffic's going instead, and also, as Councillor Potts says, with the Chamber of Trade and the residents' associations, who may or may not understand some of the Chamber of Trade were not consulted. So we do need to get our facts before we throw our weight totally behind this. So one recommendation, item 6, is that agreed? Thank you. Petition. Item 7 is a petition which I think has been overtaken by events. Councillor Thornton.
Thank you, Leader. The Broadwater toilets, yet again. It was put forward to the Executive on the 2nd of December and agreed at Council on the 9th of December to ensure the toilets are refurbished. The toilets will be maintained through an external contractor, and the money has been set aside in the budget to achieve this. It was never planned to shut the toilets at Broadwater, but thank you for your petition anyway.
Thank you. Any comments? The one recommendation, is that agreed? Agreed. 8 is the budget management report, and colleagues, you'll have one additional item on this agenda item to make a third recommendation. Councillor Potts.
Leader, thank you. Colleagues, I refer to the report which starts on page 17 of your agenda. And the report, as I say, the key headlines in terms of the latest projected position against current year's budget. The general fund is showing a projected net underspend of just over £600,000, and that's mainly due to improved income position against budget. The general fund capital programme looks to be largely on track at this stage, with some minor savings being reported. The HRA account currently looks likely to come in under budget this year, mainly due to rescheduling of capital works. And in addition, there is a request included in this report to approve slippage of the budget to improve the sheltered housing lighting, as it has not been possible to complete the procurement process as quickly as hoped. This work should be completed in the first quarter of the new financial year, and I will be continuing to work closely with the portfolio holder for sheltered housing to ensure that this is the case. Now, as the leader said, there is one additional item that I'd like to add to this report, and all colleagues, you should have an amendment, an addendum, to the agenda item 8 with a third recommendation. I think we all know that within the local plan, we've had a lot of feedback from our residents borough-wide expressing some concerns about traffic, and it seems to be a real focus of all the feedback that we've had. So it's really imperative that we make sure that this piece of work that we're planning on doing with an additional transport study from additional independent consultants goes ahead, and we can start to move forward with that. That's shown on recommendation, the new recommendation, which is 8.3. I don't know, Leader, if the portfolio holder for planning may wish to add to what I've just said. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Adams, do you wish to? Yes, indeed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Potts. As you said, it is a key question of the infrastructure. And as the residents of Waverley have shown a preference for additional housing to be built on Dunsfold Park, it is absolutely important that we get an accurate capacity figure for the 281 into Guildford, and any effect on the surrounding roads of the 281 of additional traffic. The management of Dunsfold Park have had their own traffic consultants which have come up with some views. We don't necessarily accept those views. We have been asking Surrey to come forward with a response. They have given us, just before Christmas, a very outline response, but they are heavily overloaded in Surrey, and we think that we should have our own traffic consultants working for us to verify any reports which are produced for us, especially to check the data to see that actually the trips, the distribution and the points of congestion are properly identified, and that we agree with them. We can't always rely on third parties to actually give us the information. We will, though, continue to work closely with Surrey on this because, of course, they actually hold the major traffic models. So this sum will enable us to start that process, and we hope that we will be able to have some consultants employed fairly quickly who will start verifying both outputs from VTEC, the consultants from Dunsfold Park and also help Surrey with their outputs. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Reynolds.
Thank you. I just wanted to welcome this money we're spending on a transport assessment, because it's not only the 281 that is likely to be significantly have trouble with extra traffic if Dunsfold is built. It is also the road into Godalming and to Milford, because that is probably more likely where the people will come to get the trains up to London, because Guildford is gridlocked pretty much 24 hours a day as far as I can see. So, you know, having upward of 1,800 houses at Dunsfold will have potentially a serious effect on the traffic into Godalming and Milford and Whitley and the environs. And we need to make sure that we understand the position, given that the last time there was an application for building on this site, it failed purely because of highway issues. And that being a few years ago, as far as I'm concerned, the highway issues haven't gone away. In fact, car traffic, car transport ownership, and if anything else, plus new development has probably made it worse. But until we know the actual figures, we obviously can't make a judgment. But I welcome this because it'll be useful ammunition for us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think it's important that we have these consultants to look at the transport implications throughout the borough, because there are problems everywhere in Farnham. On the A3, it seems every morning now, when you listen to the BBC radio, that it's queuing back to Milford, whether there's an incident or whether there isn't. Probably back to the tunnel if there's an incident. So, and along the A31 towards Farnham. So we do need some proper work done on this, which I'm sure we will get through this. Any other comments? So there is the two recommendations with the additional third one at 8.3. So item 8, 3 recommendations. Are they agreed? Agreed. Thank you. Item number 9 is the budget update 2015-16.
Leader, thank you. The budget update report for members you will find starting at page 33 on your agenda, and the report provides a brief update on the 2015-16 budget setting process. As you know, we've been estimating approximately £1 million gap in our budget next year, and officers and all the portfolio holders have been working extremely hard to scrutinise the budgets and service plans, hoping to endeavour to present a balanced budget to the Council in February. Now, Government have confirmed Waverley's grant for next year, and I have to say that whilst we've been planning for a cut, it is a severe blow. We've had our grant cut by some 29% next year, and whilst we'd anticipated this in our projections, it's not good news. Despite this pressure, the administration's very keen to protect frontline services, and I want to, on behalf of the administration, reassure our residents of that this evening. That is of paramount importance, and we will do all we can to ensure that we maintain the overall support to community organisations next year, and we want to continue to offer good value to our council taxpayers. So the report asks each of the overview and scrutiny committees to examine the detailed budget proposals within their remit and to pass observations back to the executive to inform the final budget setting process in February. Leader, the recommendations are on page 36. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Colleagues, anyone wish to comment? I think it's a huge amount yet again. Year after year for the last 4 or 5 years we've had these massive cuts and still provide all our frontline services, and we haven't actually reduced anything. In fact, we've increased, like food collection and cardboard collection, all these things we've done within the budget after cuts from government all the time. So I think we can be very proud of that. Councillor Martin.
I would echo that sentiment, and I think it's an excellent track record that this administration has, despite continued pressure and huge reductions in grants from central government. This council has, as you say, protected the frontline services and moved on and carried on and kept council tax, our share of the council tax, at the same level throughout these difficult times. So I think that's really good news, and I think we should be rightly proud of that track record. As a matter of interest, and perhaps it could be circulated at a later point, I wonder if anybody could tell me what percentage of our total budget the government grant will be after this further 29% cut, because that's the percentage of our total budget the government actually provides is getting ever smaller, and I suspect it's significantly under 50% now. The fact that we can carry on when you compare it to many other councils across the country who have percentage budgets sort of well into the sort of 70s, 80% mark. I think we do very well and hit really far above our weight.
Thank you very much indeed. Yes, we will come back with that figure at the next meeting. We'll let you know before, but we'll come back. And at the same time, we have frozen the council tax throughout that period. Perhaps we should look for similar cuts at the DCLG. I'm sure that we could save a lot of money there if they modelled themselves. Perhaps the Permanent Secretary wouldn't have time to appear on the Christmas edition of University Challenge then. Any other comments? Two recommendations, are they agreed? Thank you. Item 10 is the Bright Wells Gostry Centre. Results of the feasibility study for moving services to a redeveloped Memorial Hall. Councillor King. Councillor King first.
Sorry, thank you very much indeed. Colleagues probably remember in December 2013 this executive agreed to spend capital funds to carry out a feasibility study of the relocation of the Gostry Centre to the Memorial Hall, and architectural services and quantity surveyors subsequently carried out an extensive consultation and drew up plans for a new community centre. Consultation also took place with all the stakeholders, as the Gostry Centre trustees, Surrey County Council commissioning team, the North East Hanson Farnham Clinical Commissioning Group, to identify best practice to help design a modern, fit-for-purpose community centre for Farnham and the surrounding area. Consultation then took place with the regular users of the Memorial Hall, and their feedback has been collated, and where possible, some design changes have been made to the initial plan to take their needs into account. The plans are shown at Appendix 1, and these meet the space requirements of the Gostry Centre and will provide the facilities appropriate to meet the needs of the increasing older population of Farnham. Regular hirers of the Memorial Hall specifically asked for retention of as much of the existing hall floor space as possible and for increased storage space, which has been allowed for in the plans. The flexible layout shown on the plans would mean that the new building could become commercially viable as a community facility, eventually becoming self-supporting by being hired out for events such as weddings, etc. The layout would also provide space for delivery of services of partner agencies through contractually renting out space while still maintaining the wider community accessibility previously associated with the Memorial Hall. There's been a really good example of partnership working here. I'm pleased to announce, since the report was written, we have a funding commitment just been received from the North East Hanson Farnham Care Commissioners. I'm really delighted that they are totally supporting our aims and objectives on the provision here. In addition, Surrey County Council funding for health and wellbeing suite and telecare demonstration equipment, there may be potential for further funding from Surrey County Council for the centre. Building a new community centre for Farnham, backed by the Gostry Centre trustees at the Memorial Hall, represents the most financially viable future for both the Gostry Centre and the Memorial Hall, and I hope that colleagues can support the new and enhanced building, which will provide the flexibility and versatility needed for the future and give financial independence for the building. I commend the two recommendations on page 41. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Councillor Potts.
Leader, thank you. I think Councillor King has very eloquently covered most of the key points here, and this really is a good news story, but especially one for Farnham and the surrounding areas, because let us not forget that it's not just the residents actually in Farnham who will be using this facility. And let us not forget also that to have the endorsement of the North East Hampshire and Farnham CCG with their proposed investment of £150,000 is again a real benefit, and I think that really shows the sort of endorsement that we're already receiving from key stakeholders here, which is of paramount importance. We're hoping that if permission is granted, this scheme will really demonstrate a considerable investment by Waverley Borough Council to provide a first-class community facility to local people, to both our elderly and vulnerable residents, but also ensuring that we've got a sustainable community facility for many of our other residents and local groups to use. So I think a really positive story, and I thoroughly endorse this, and again I really commend this to members this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Reynolds and Councillor Tennyson.
Thank you, Leader. Well, just with my grants hat on, a couple of years ago I remember having a meeting with the then trustees at the Gostry Centre and the manager, and there were difficulties which still exist with that centre, given the uncertainty of where it's located and the fact that not a lot of money is being able to be spent on the building given its likely future. And I know that it's been challenging times for them, and they've coped admirably in the circumstances. And what I'm delighted is that the trustees and the users and the manager of the Gotcha Centre are so excited by this new proposal to move it to a better facility which is better located and provides them with exactly what they need. And I think this is the best news, and I really hope we can just get on and do it for them, because it'll be great. Thank you.
Thank you. The best part of what we do is actually providing services and valued facilities for people. And I think this is an excellent example of a project which will be, if it goes ahead, extremely valued by the people who will use that facility. It will be a significant investment, a really significant investment in Farnham, and I think I personally would love this to go ahead, because I think it is a great way of killing two birds with one stone, if that's the expression, in terms of improving the Memorial Hall, so that's fit for purpose, and actually making it an exemplar daycare centre at the same time. As an aside, I think it's rather sad that some objectors, particularly Labour Party members, have seen fit to try and derail this project from the outset, when actually I think it's laudable that we just want to try and provide a facility which is a great improvement from the existing facility, and I very much hope it goes ahead.
Thank you. Any other comments, please? Item number 10, there are two recommendations. Are they agreed? Agreed. Item 11 is contaminated land with potential options for the former landfill site at Waden Lane, Farnham. Councillor O'Neill.
Thank you, Leader. I'd refer to you for orientation to the maps on pages 80 to 84. The 10-acre area in question in South Farnham, which is now bounded by housing, was originally a large gravel pit, which was then used as a landfill site from 1972 to 81. Measures were taken thereafter to restore the site for other use, but the rehabilitation process is a long one, typically necessitating 30 years or longer. As the fill material degrades, it not only settles but also emits both methane and carbon dioxide. To control the process, the surface area is sealed by an impermeable clay cap, and a trench is dug around the entire perimeter, into which the gas will migrate over time and so disperse. Though full details are not known, it appears that the trench was constructed in 1984 and was then 1 metre wide and 5 deep, and was filled with uniformly graded stone through which the gas can percolate. Since that time, the trench has become overgrown, and the observation boreholes which pass down through the clay cap for monitoring of the process and of the groundwater have been overgrown. From the detailed inspection reports from consultants which support the recommendations before you, it will be seen that there has been differential settling of the surface, which is not unexpected over such a large area, so that rainwater can accumulate in places. There also appears to be some variation in the thickness of the clay cap, and perhaps some cracking of it, and indeed at one point there may be some lead contamination. Given the duration that settling has been in progress, it has been appropriate to look forward to the future development, to engage a specialist land consultant to evaluate the potential for using the site for other purposes. It is currently used informally for dog walking, and the possibility exists for future development as a recreational site. Doing so does, however, demand a better understanding than we have of the continuing gas generation and dispersal, and of the need, if any, for repair or augmentation of the clay cap. Alternatives for short-term monitoring and management of the site will be found as options A, B and C on page 51. Of these, the preferred option is C, which in the short term maintains the site as a dog walking area while undertaking extensive monitoring and augmentation where necessary of the clay cap. It should be stressed that though methane and carbon dioxide emissions continue, they are not in concentrations which represent any hazard to nearby residents. The results of this work will provide a more detailed basis for evaluation and costing of future recreational development. With this in mind, and on the basis of the albeit still limited data available, the cost of two such development schemes has been assessed. They are summarised as options D and E on page 51 and refer to the creation of a formal park costing around 2.75 million, or for the development of a sports facility at upwards of 3.5 million. The very preliminary nature of these costings must be emphasised and, depending on complications, could be even higher. Given the large costs involved and the continuing uncertainty about ground conditions, no concrete proposal for development is being made or can be made at this time. The reports mentioned have been discussed at the Community Overview and Scrutiny Committee, which proved very supportive of the proposal for short-term maintenance and monitoring. Evaluation of longer-term options for the development was also considered desirable, and it was recommended that a special interest group, a SIG, be set up to assist in assessment of opportunities, constraints and complications. I personally find this a most pragmatic proposal and I welcome it heartily. The report, which is provided on page 97, which looks at alternatives, will provide an excellent starting point for the SIG's discussion of future development. The two recommendations to the Executive relate to the approval of the short-term management plan and for establishment of the pro-SIG, and I commend them both without reservation to Executive members. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much. Colleagues, any comments? Two recommendations, are they agreed? Number 12 is shared ownership in Waverley. Councillor Stennett.
Thank you, Leader. The shared ownership is an affordable home ownership option for those who can't afford to buy their own homes on the open market. Waverley's shared ownership register is managed by the Bedford and Housing Association. 226 Waverley householders have registered interest in options for shared ownership. We need to formalise the priority process to make sure these are allocated to people living and working locally, tenants in social rented homes, people looking for jobs in the area and military personnel, people with connections to Waverley. We also need to make sure that people with village connections are given priority on the homes generated through rural exemption schemes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other comments, please? There is one recommendation. Is that agreed? I was somewhat amiss, colleagues, at the start of the meeting in not welcoming Councillor Stennett to the Executive. I do apologise. I should have done that. And it should also have been an item, I think, which noted that you are now a member, having replaced Councillor Webster. But I'm sure we can note that. And you're very welcome.
Thank you. It was on the priority. It says applicant is eligible MOD personnel, and I wonder whether that included veterans.
I would think that it does. Yes. Are you in that category?
No.
I haven't seen you on Dad's Army.
I think it's what that is covered by the military covenant. Thank you. Item 13 is safeguarding policies for adults and children. I think this is just tidying up, colleagues. I think, yes. I don't know if any comments. No. Councillor King.
No, you're absolutely right, Leader. It is. And certainly the one for adults, and I'm sure Councillor Thorne was happy with me to say for children, is a formality. It's timely. It's a timely update, and I strongly recommend the adoption. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Colleagues, 2 recommendations. Are they agreed? 14, complaints handling in Waverley 2013-14. Colleagues, this is the annual report to members on complaints handling in Waverley in 2013-14 and reviews the Council's policy on dealing with complaints, particularly those received from unreasonably persistent complainants. The report also provides information on the number of complaints received, the nature of those complaints and the Council's performance in responding to complaints against the current target of 95% of all complaints to be responded to within 10 working days. A copy of the Council's complaints policy is attached at Annex 1. This policy closely reflects guidance published by the Local Government Ombudsman as demonstrated by the table attached at Annex 2. The report draws attention to the significant increase in Level 1 and 2 complaints in 2013-14, which is due mainly to an increase in complaints about housing and in particular the responsive repairs service. However, there are signs that this situation is now improving with a reduction in the number of housing complaints received in the first 2 quarters of the year, and we certainly are looking to that improvement continuing. The Executive is asked to approve 2 recommendations, both of which were endorsed by the Corporate Overview and Scrutiny Committee on the 25th of November 2014. 1, that there should be a standalone policy for dealing with unreasonably persistent complainants. Although the current policy has a short paragraph on dealing with this type of complaint, the Ombudsman recommends that authorities should have a separate policy which can be shared with complainants if they start to behave unreasonably, so their expectations and behaviour can be managed while their complaint is being addressed. And 2, the timescale for dealing with Level 2 and 3 complaints should be increased from 10 to 15 working days. Complaints at this level often require more in-depth investigation and can take some time, particularly in the case of housing complaints, where it is often necessary to obtain information from the Council's contractors. Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Leader. I just wanted to draw attention really to the table on page 182 in section 7. You pointed out that the level 1 and 2 complaints had gone up significantly. What I think we should be rightly proud of is the fact that in turn the level 3 complaints and and those that go up to the Ombudsman haven't increased. So despite there being a general increase in complaints all round, actually they haven't been escalated all the way up the trail. They've been dealt with at a much quicker, at a much lower level, and I think that's a good news story that we should be that we should be proud of. That we are able to deal with those complaints before they sort of almost spiral out of control. So I congratulate officers for that. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. The Ombudsman figure is quite revealing, as you say, on 182. Thank you very much. Then the recommendations are the 2 as set out on the agenda paper. Are they agreed? Agreed. 15 is complaints about Waverley's services received by the Local Government Ombudsman and Housing Ombudsman in 2013-14. And again, this is the annual report to members on the Ombudsman's complaints and is in 2 parts. Part 1 is the Local Government Ombudsman's complaints. In his annual letter to Waverley, which is attached at Annex 1, this is much briefer than in previous years and reflects a significant change in the Ombudsman's approach to dealing with complaints. The Ombudsman will now only carry out detailed investigations of cases where there seems to have been a significant risk of fault by the authority concerned, or there is a reasonable chance of achieving an acceptable resolution for the complainant. Members, you may wish to note that the Local Government Ombudsman now regards all fault to be maladministration. Previously, this term was used only in those cases that were subject of a formal report. One complaint about the Waverley's housing option service was upheld in 2013-14, and details of this are given in Exempt Annex 2. Part 2 is the Housing Ombudsman's complaints. The Housing Ombudsman Service took over responsibility for investigating local authority housing complaints on the 1st of April 2013 and does not issue an annual letter, and therefore the information in the report is taken from the Council's own records. Paragraphs 8 to 11 of the report summarise the Housing Ombudsman's way of working, including the Ombudsman's use of the term maladministration, which is similar to the approach now being taken by the Local Government Ombudsman. In 2013-14, the Housing Ombudsman investigated 3 complaints made by Waverley's tenants, details of which are given as Exempt Annex 3. Again, this report was considered by the Corporate Overview and Scrutiny Committee on the 25th of November, which had no particular observations to pass on to the Executive. It is therefore suggested the Executive notes the contents of the report and welcomes the lessons learned as a result of the Ombudsman's findings. Any comments, please? One recommendation, item 15, is that agreed? Agreed. Item 16 is property matters. Councillor Potts.
Leader, thank you. The report can be found on page 213. Some members should note that there was a slight printing error, so additional copies have been made available for you. Now, much of this is actually in exempt, and I don't intend to go into exempt, but if members want to discuss this in detail, then of course we can. But the report itself covers 2 property matters, one regarding Waverley-owned common land in Cranley, and the other Farnham Trading Estate in Farnham. General details are included in the main report, and the specific terms proposed are, as I've said, included in the exempt annexes to the report on pages 219 and 223 of your agenda. These are both extremely sensible proposals, and I support the recommendations which can be found on page 215, and commend them to you, Leader. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments, please? The 2 recommendations, are they agreed? Item 17 is the Performance Management Exception Report for Quarter 2, July to September 2014-15. As I've said before, I'm amazed these are quarterly reports but come to every meeting, and I thought we met monthly, but doubtless somebody will eventually sort that out. But here they are. Councillor Potts.
Leader, thank you, and your comments and those of executive colleagues earlier have been taken on board, and I'm actually meeting with officers, as I say, later this month to look at the whole report and its structure. So rest assured that is already in hand. The report, as you know, looks at the performance indicators for the first 6 months of this financial year, and the detailed figures are included in the annex for noting, and that's at page 225. Can I take this opportunity to thank both the Overview and Scrutiny Committees for considering the performance information in detail. We very much welcome their comments, and these are set out in the report. I'm happy with the proposals that the O&S committees have made, and these are included in the recommendation on page 227. Thank you.
Thank you, colleagues. Anyone anything to say? Thank you, and therefore we will accept the Overview and Scrutiny Committee's observations and recommendations in 2, if we're agreeable to that. So 2 recommendations, 1 and 2, are they agreed? 18 is the Chief Executive's actions, which I'm sure you're just going to be told about, but that meant the office didn't have to close because the water being cut off.
Leader. Just one item, bottom of page 8, 9,500 to do those major works just before Christmas. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, and that brings to a close this evening's proceedings. Thank you very much.